All right, a very warm welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for joining in to today's session. So, today we'll be looking into exactly what cloud computing is. And in this entire series, we'll try to understand exactly what is cloud computing and what are the challenges most of us face when we are working in this area in any organization or on our own, or for some of the students who are actually trying to learn this for the first time, right? So we will look at it in the perspective of a solutions architect. When we are talking about the cloud, when we are talking about AWS as such, um, there are different domains within the cloud environment itself. For example, when you're talking about IT, you have different roles, as in you have software engineers, you have network engineers, then you have server maintenance people, right? So there are different types of roles. So when you're talking about a solutions architect, what does he do? So basically, they build solutions, they build infrastructure solutions. When we are talking about infrastructure, we are talking about things like servers, we are talking about databases, we're talking about the network which connects all these different equipment, right? That is what a solution architect's role is, to put together all these different services and entities to build a final product which will help you to run an application or a software or host it so that many clients can connect to the server and access the services provided by the server, right? So we will look into this in detail. What exactly is cloud computing? And majorly we'll try to understand in the past few years what is the major reason that cloud computing is so famous. Everybody is talking about cloud computing. So what happened in the last few years, and what is happening right now, and what is the scope and the future of cloud computing? So there are many areas of IT which is very uh, rapidly changing, and all of us have to adapt very quickly as well. So one of the areas in the last few years was cloud computing. Now it is machine learning, AI, but all these technologies work together. Most of the machine learning and AI technologies are hosted on cloud itself, right? So it's a wonderful area to be in. So if you're starting to learn now or just enhancing your skill set in the coming years, there's a huge scope for cloud, and if you learn it now, it's going to be amazing. So we are going to try and understand in this entire series, how do you come into this area if you're trying to break into this domain of work for the first time, or if you're already working here, how can you better learn this entire domain of cloud computing and take your career to a newer level? And if you're already someone who's working in this area for quite some time, how can you move on to the next phase of your career? What are the other things that you can learn to enhance your skill set and move to different roles? Okay, so if you see here, we're going to talk about the entire AWS solutions architect journey. So first, we'll start with what exactly is cloud computing. To understand what is cloud computing, we need to first understand what do we mean when I say IT infrastructure, right? So as I said, in IT there are different types of roles, different domains, but we are majorly talking about, in the solutions architect role, we are talking about the infrastructure part of IT. What are databases, what is a server, and all that. And in order to understand that, we need to first understand the foundation of IT. In this entire series, I'm going to try to make it very, very simple for you so that everybody can understand. And I'm going to continuously try to connect it with the real world examples, as the title itself says. Many times we learn a lot of things theoretically and we do practice quite a bit, but when you actually start working in an organization or in some project, you don't have any clue how to utilize that service, right? You may know about everything in bits and pieces, but how do you put them together? How do you actually create a solution? How do you implement it? And in the real world, what is it actually used for? That is what we are going to try and understand, so that when you learn all this and you, let's say, you give an interview, you clear that interview, and you actually get to a job on day one, what is expected from you, right? Most of the times what happens is, people will just give you a task and they'll tell you, get this done, right? And at that time, most of the newbies, they don't know exactly what to do in terms of how to speak to others, how to get help, to who should they get help from, and what all they have learned, how to put that into practice. So that is what we are going to focus on. We will learn everything in theory, then we will go to some practical sessions. We'll learn everything hands on. There will be nothing which we will discuss in theory but not do practically. There will be nothing like that. So we will discuss everything in theory first. We'll understand what it is, why it happens, and why do we need it. And then I will show everything to you on the console, and we will try to understand what this is. And then we will see how it works in the real world by putting together all the different services. Okay, so today if you see this point number 1.2, what is traditional IT infrastructure versus cloud computing? Okay, so I'm going to go into a bit of the historical IT infrastructure so that I can relate it with cloud computing and then tell you exactly what it is. So many people who may be very new to IT, who are just passing out of college or who are just studying in college, or many people who are just who have a lot of work experience in IT, but they are just trying to move to cloud computing now, maybe from a software field or something like that. We'll just go through this session and understand the basics of IT infrastructure, and then we'll relate it with cloud computing so that you have a very good picture about what we're talking here. Okay, so if you look at this image, it's an image of a data center, right? So from the outside it looks just like a regular building. So maybe if you're walking by this building, nobody would be able to say exactly what this is, but on the inside, this building would be a little different from the others in terms of what it is hosting, right? So any data center, wherever it be, we need to understand that it's hosting a lot of data. It hosts a lot of client data, customer data. All right, it has a lot of confidential data. So any data center building, physical building, compared to any other building, would be a lot more secure in terms of securing it with manual security, people securing the entrances, exits, and then the actual building having its entry points in terms of the gates, the doors, and everything will have certain biometric access, some fingerprint reading or some facial scan recognition systems or something like that, so that only the authorized, actual authorized people will be able to enter, because it hosts a lot of confidential data, right? So this is a very critical building. Now what do you have inside this building? So this is a cutaway look of a data center. Now if you see here, there are a lot of different types of systems which are working together, right? You see all these black box kind of things, they are all called as racks or cabinets. So they host a lot of different types of equipment, right? And so they're all different types of IT equipment. We'll come to what they are one by one later on. So to host this kind of an environment, you need a lot of different systems working together. First of all, because all these IT equipment are working, there is a lot of heat generated. So you have electrical power systems which are powering this equipment, then there's a lot of heat generation. So you need to make sure that the entire area is maintained at a certain temperature so that the equipment can work very efficiently at that temperature, right? So you have certain cooling system, HVAC systems, heating, ventilation, and all those systems working together to make sure these systems are working at a very efficient temperature. Then you have different other systems like biometric systems, authorization systems, so that only the authorized people can enter into this space. Then there will be other systems like maybe a fire warning system, maybe a fire suppression system. In case there is a fire, the fire can be put out very quickly, right? So all these systems are working together in this kind of a data center. Now these black racks or cabinets or whatever you're seeing here, what do they actually host? So if you see in this image, you have some engineers working on these equipment, right? So you see racks and racks of different types of equipment which are installed on these racks. Now, I'm sure many of you may have seen this in certain movies, or if you are in a workplace, you must have seen there, maybe in your school, your college, somewhere. So these engineers, they connect their laptops to the specific system that they want, and they connect. So if you see earlier, we are talking about the systems that we used to have 8, 10, 15 years ago. Of course, even now we have all these systems running many places, but when we are making a direct comparison with cloud, that's why I'm saying this is exactly how we used to operate it when we did not have cloud, right? So we had all these physical systems where you would connect your laptop and you would connect to the specific system that you want, and then you would work on it. Okay, now in these racks you have many different types of systems. Certain systems are called as servers. Some of them will be networking systems like switches. Some of them will be routers, right? So there are many different types of systems. We'll see one by one. All these systems are interconnected at the back using different types of cables, optical cables, then cat5 cable, cat6 cable. There are different types of cables which will help you to interconnect them, right? Now majorly, one of the major types of systems that you have here is the one that you see at the bottom here. This is, I'm sure many of you know, is called as a server, right? A server. So what is a server? A server helps us to host any kind of application or a website or something like that, so that it is hosted in a data center, and all the clients who want to access that application or website can connect to it and access it, right? So we'll see one by one how to do that. Now the if you see here, this is again a place where you have all these racks where all these equipments are connected. So you have some servers, you have some networking equipment like router switches, and then you have some monitor screens and all that, right? So what is the comparison here? This is a much larger data center which hosts a lot of different types of racks, and all these equipment are interconnected, and you have a very large place which is hosting a lot of different equipment, right? And most of these equipment may be even be co-located. That means they may belong to different companies, but they are hosted in the same place, but making sure that all the necessary security is in place, right, in terms of how the data is managed. But at the same time, if you see, this one is again just like that data center, but it's at a much smaller scale, right? So you see only two racks are there, only a few equipment compared to what we saw earlier. So again, this is a data center, but you can call it something like a server room. So this is at a much smaller scale. So you can say something like this. You can see in a maybe in a school, or maybe in a college, or maybe in a small office location, right? So it's just that the function in both the cases is exactly the same. It's just that the scale is different. This is at a much smaller scale. That is at a much larger scale, right? But the most of the equipment that you would see is almost the same, right? Now, if you see here, what I mentioned about the server, these are different types of servers. Now, servers come in different sizes and different configurations based on your requirement. What is the application you're hosting? What is the website that you're hosting? Whatever task you want that server to do. So there are many other things that a server can do, which we'll see in the coming series. So based on what your requirement is, you select the kind of server that you want, right? What would be the configuration? What would be the specific feature set that you want in that server? Based on that, you will choose that. If you see in this place, you have many servers from different different manufacturers. For example, this one is from Fujitsu, this one is from Dell, this one is from another manufacturer. Again, we have some more images here. This one is from IBM Think Center series. This one again is from Dell. So there are many different types of manufacturers who make these servers, and according to the requirement, the customer can purchase whichever server they want, right? Now, if you see here, there is a server which has been opened up, and you can see all the parts within it, right? So there are different types of servers. On the right side, if you see this image, you can insert multiple hard disk drives. So someone is inserting a hard disk drive. Now, if you see in this slide, you have an image of a computer system from, let's say, something like the late 80s, early 90s or something. So this white one, this is a computer from an older period. And this black computer system that you see is much more modern. You have a very sleek monitor. You have a much well-designed cabinet here. So this is how the computer systems evolved. But on the right side, if you see, you have a computer systems, modern computer system, which has been opened up, right? So you can see through exactly what is on the inside. I'm sure many of you have seen this maybe in your home when you were upgrading your computer system, or maybe in your college, maybe in your school, some technician was working on the computer system, they were upgrading the RAM or the hard disk or something like that. I'm sure you must have seen this, right? So if you see here, there are many different components put together for this computer system to work, right? So if you see here, you have a power supply unit, then you have a motherboard, you have a central processing unit, maybe a processor, something like if you see you in Intel, you have i3 processor, i5 processor, i7, right? So then AMD has a lot of processors. So there are different types of processors, but here you have a processor which is fit into a motherboard, and then you have some RAM modules here. You have a hard disk drive, right? So these are all the components which go together to make that computer system and work. So what is the reason that we are seeing here? Because when you compare this with the server, that's exactly how a server is as well. So if you see here, you have a few servers, right? Now all these servers have different structures, different form factors. For example, the one on the left, you see there are a lot of hard disk drives connected on this, right? Then you have a motherboard, you have some RAM modules, you have power supply units. On the right side also, you have two different servers, but then the way they are built is a little different. So when you have different types of servers, you choose the kind of server based on your requirements. For example, on the left side, you see many different hard disk drives on the servers. Most probably this must have been used as a storage server or something like that, right? So because it has a lot of storage, so based on your requirement, there are different configurations that you can buy. But if you see, most of the components on this server is exactly the same as you would find in your home desktop or your laptop itself, right? So it has hard disk drives, it has a motherboard, it has a processor, it has some RAM modules, it has a power supply unit. So all these components are exactly the same. So what is the difference? So the components and everything, the way it functions, everything is the same, but the difference, major difference is, if you're working on your laptop or you're working on your desktop, maybe you'll use it for some time, maybe 7 8 hours, 10 hours at the maximum, and then you'll shut it down for the day, right? Once your work is done, you'll shut it down. But these servers are not like that. These servers are hosting certain applications, they are hosting certain websites, so they are expected to be serving their clients 24/7, right? So they'll be working 24 hours a day, 365 days uh, a year, non-stop, right? So they'll be continuously working. Many times they'll have multiple power supply units. Even if one power supply unit fails, you can just hot swap it. That means while the server is running, you can remove that power supply unit and you can put in another power supply unit, so that the server keeps running without any failures. Even if one hard disk fails, right? So the image that we saw earlier where someone was uh, removing the hard disk, even if you have multiple hard drives, using RAID technology, if one hard disk fails, you can just remove it and insert it while the server is running, and it will automatically sync data from the other hard drives, right? So this is exactly what a server is. But when you're running them, they are a lot more durable than your typical desktop or a hard disk or a laptop, right? So they can run continuously for a long time. That's why, yeah, they are built, they are built to be a lot more durable. They can continuously run for a long time, and whenever there is a requirement, maybe they can be brought down, they can be shut down for a certain time with prior approved downtime, where they can be shut down, right? So that's what is a server. Majorly it is used for hosting certain web applications, certain websites, and many other things, like we'll see in the future Active Directory or DNS server, DHCP server. So there are many more functions that they can provide. Now, how do you actually use these servers, right? So when you are using a laptop or a desktop, for example, right now I'm using a system where I'm using an operating system. If I just type here, I'm using a Windows operating system. So if I type something like win were, right? So if you see, I'm using a Windows 11 operating system, Windows 11 version 24H2. So this is the operating system that I'm using. So this operating system helps me to communicate with the hardware of my system and then do certain tasks, right? So same way on your server also you need to install an operating system so that you can communicate with the server. So here I've shown a Windows operating system. So it looks exactly the way your laptop or your desktop Windows operating system may look, but it offers a lot more features in terms of a server, right? So you see here on the right you have this console which says server manager. So on the server manager, if you go, there are a lot more features that you can utilize on the server, and in this entire series we'll see a lot of these features as well. So when we're utilizing cloud, how do you utilize this server? That's what we are going to learn as well. So this is one operating system, Windows, which we are going to see, but there are other operating systems as well, like Linux, many different flavors of Linux like Ubuntu, uh, RHEL and all that. So we'll see that as well. So this kind of an operating system is installed on the hardware, and then you utilize the server. So now that we have seen about servers, there are other different types of equipment as well, which are utilized in a data center. So if you look at your screen, I'm sure you'll be able to very easily identify what these are. These are called as routers or routers, based on wherever you're located. And they are used in almost every home now, in small offices, in public places, in cafes and all that, right? So you see these are different types of routers, wireless routers, in which you can connect a cable and you can connect your laptop or your desktop or something and access the internet, or through the wireless feature using Wi-Fi you can connect to them wirelessly as well. So these are different types of cables that you can use. The one which is the yellow cable is an optical fiber cable, which gives you very good transfer speeds, and these two are called as Cat5 and Cat6 cables. So they are again used as a local area network connectivity to connect different devices, right? So I'm sure many of us must have seen these devices. But if you see, when you're talking about a corporate environment, when you're talking about an enterprise scale environment, these devices will not be helpful at all, because these devices are designed to handle small loads. So maybe in a house there are 5 or 6 or maximum 10 people. Maybe there is a small office, there are 15 to 20 people who are using a few devices. Those devices are connecting to these routers and they're connecting to the internet or the internal network or something like that. Then it's absolutely fine, it can handle that much load. But when you're talking about a large enterprise organization where different servers are communicating with each other, different users are connecting with each other, in that case these devices will be very easily overloaded, so you cannot use these devices. That's why you use something like this. So if you see, these devices are called as network switches, and they have a lot of different ports on which your users can connect their systems. So if you see this image on the bottom left, you see there are many cables connected to this switch, right? So what is a network switch? So just like, in your home, you may have an electrical switch, you turn it on and off, but this is not that kind of a switch. Here switch means a device which switches data from one place to the other. So these switches are used to send data, transfer data from one place to the other. So maybe you have multiple networks, you have multiple devices. It helps to send the data from one place to the other, based on certain rules and configurations and everything, that are routing rules and everything that are pre-configured in the devices. So these are the different types of routers, sorry, different types of switches. Now, based on your requirement, you can opt for different types of switches. If you have only around 15 to 20 devices, including servers and all that, you can go for something like this. Then if you have multiple, let's say 50 to 100, then you can go for something like this. Or if you have a very large enterprise where you have lots and lots of devices, many users, then you can go for this one on the right, something like this, right? So this is a um, level 4 switch from a brand called as Cisco. The model is 4510, and these switches are very, very hardcore, as in they can just keep on working continuously for years and years. In fact, there was a particular organization where I was working earlier, and I was working on this kind of exact same model of the switch. And when I was working on a maintenance task where I needed to restart that entire switch over a weekend, I saw that that switch was up for almost 8 years. So when you log into this switch, you can actually check for how long it has been up, and it had been running for almost 8 years without a restart at all. And that's how durable these devices are. It was very dusty. It was, I mean, the device had not been maintained very well, but still it was running very well. So if you see here at the top, you see there are two handles, right? So these two are different power supply units. So, and both these power supply units will have two different power inputs as well. So in case there is any one power supply unit also failing, the other one will continue to work, and the entire switch will continue to run. And while it is the second one is running, you can replace the first one, so that again you have a failover option in case there is a power supply failure or something. Then you it will continue to work, right? So there are many other things in place like a UPS or something, so that in case there is a power failure, the systems will continue to run. But the main point you need to understand is these switches are built for an entire enterprise environment where there is a lot of traffic going through these switches, and they are very expensive as well. Cisco grade switches especially, they are very very expensive, but that's what large organizations and enterprises prefer, so that their infrastructure is very robust and very durable. Okay, so this is one type of device called as a network switch. Now, if you see, this is called as a router. So the devices that you have at home functions like a switch and a router as well. So both the functions are built into the same device. But here, this device works at a certain level. If you have studied networking, you'll know that there are different levels. So this device can work at layer 3 and layer 4 of the network, uh, of the OSI model, as you know. And this router helps us to route our data to the internet, okay, as required. So what you can do is this again, these devices are from many different brands like Cisco, Juniper, and all that. So you can connect your switch to all the local area network devices. Then you can connect this switch to a router, and then from there you can connect to the internet or to different networks as per your network design. So if you see something like, you can create a network something like this. You can have many devices connecting to your switch over here, all the local area network devices connecting to the switch, and then that switch connecting to the router that goes out to the internet or some other networks. Okay, so I'm as of now I'm keeping the entire concept of the switch and router and everything very simple, because we in the coming days will see uh, everything in a lot more detail in the cloud environment. Okay, now let's try to understand exactly what is the reason cloud computing is so famous. Okay, so now if you see in this slide, there are a lot of different advantages of cloud computing which has been shown here, like cost saving, flexibility, 24 by 7 availability, reliability, scalability, all that. Okay, now let's try to understand exactly what this means and what is the practical reason that cloud computing is so famous now. So if I go back to my whiteboard, so you see, let's say that let's think about a time about 10 to 15 years back. Let's say that there was a person who wanted to start his own business. Okay, so let's say that this person has a wonderful business idea, and let's say that he wanted to start something like an e-commerce store, and he has a wonderful product that he wants to sell, right? So in order for him to sell that product, let's say that he requires a website. Okay, now for him to host the entire website where he expects a lot of people to turn up on the website and make a lot of purchases, let's assume that he requires a small data center. Okay, now at that time, because he required a certain data center, first of all he would require to maybe purchase a small place, or maybe just rent out a place, right? So maybe something like a small size of a warehouse. He'll have to arrange for that place, so it will have a certain rent or some ownership costs associated with that. Now, based on everything that we have seen so far, let's say that to host this website initially, before he has a lot of users accessing it, maybe let's say initially, in order to host this kind of a website and all the other applications that he may require, let's say that he requires 5 servers. Okay, so we are going very minimally. Let's say that he requires 5 servers. Okay, so in order for him to acquire 5 servers, he would have to spend, as I told you, the cost associated with this kind of a device is very high. So in a typical environment, when you're purchasing 5 servers, let's say, it would easily cost around $5,000 per server, easily, right? So let's say that for 5 servers, he'll have to spend around approximately $25,000 if he's going for some good servers, right? Now, let's say that he needs to purchase another 5 switches. Okay, so let's say something like 2 switches. Okay, so for these 2 switches, the network switches that we saw, let's say that he needs to purchase these 2 switches. So for that as well, he'll require to spend at least around $3,000 to $4,000. So let's say it costs him around $6,000 for that. Okay, now let's say that he needs to purchase 2 routers as well. So for that, let's say that each router is at least around $5,000. So that will be around $10,000. Okay, now there will be a lot of other costs involved, something like operating systems, right? So he'll have to purchase a lot of operating system, then he'll have to get some cables, he'll have to fit in a lot of different systems like HVAC system, ventilation system, firefighting system, right? So there are a lot of other costs involved. He needs to get the required physical security, all that, right? So so let's say all that put together easily comes to around $50,000, right? And then he will also have to get some employees who will manage this for him. Not just that, he'll have to get certain contractors who will install all the devices for him in the racks, or they will set up the entire data center. So all that together, let's say there will be a lot of cost. Let's say some another miscellaneous cost will be another 20,000 or so. Okay, so whatever is the cost. So let's say if I see roughly, easily initially, the capital expenditure, the cost that he has to upfront invest even before starting his business is easily around $100,000, right? So it's easily $100,000, easily going to be more than. So we're talking about a time around 8 to 10 years back. So this is the cost that you'd have to install, you'd have to invest just to get his business started. And that's not the only challenge. When you are purchasing all these different devices like servers and switches and routers, they're not the kind of devices that you can just walk into a store and purchase it from the shelf and go home. It's not like that. You need to place a purchase order, right? You need to place an order with a manufacturer like Dell or HP or Fujitsu, and then there will be a waiting period of around 2 to 3 months for you to acquire that. Only once, then there will be a certain period after that they will deliver those devices to your place, right? So let's say this person, for him to start his business, he has to upfront invest around $100,000 to just acquire the equipment. Then he has to wait at least for a month or so for those equipment to be delivered to him, so that he can start. So once everything is delivered, then he'll have to get the contractors, the engineers and everything, and set up everything. That will take at least another 1 or 2 months. So in the entire process, if you see, he has to spend at least $100,000 and invest a time of at least 3 months in the entire process. Correct? So this is what we are talking about, approximately what used to happen around 10 years back, right? Now I'm going to show to you exactly what happens now. So from this, so just whatever we have seen, just keep this in your mind. And now I'm going to take you to a console which will tell you exactly what we are going to learn in this entire series. So if you see, this is the AWS console. right? This is the AWS console. In this console, there are a lot of things that you can do. If I go here, you see it gives me a list of all the services that we can access. If I click on view all services, it gives all these services to me. Okay, now out of all these services, we'll be focusing on some core services and learning everything in detail in this entire course. But right now, I want to take you to a particular service called as EC2. Okay, so this service is called as EC2, and it is called as the Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud. Elastic Compute Cloud. So this is just a proprietary term that AWS likes to use. Other cloud computing platforms like Azure, Google Cloud, they also have their own terms. Um, but what it means is a virtual server. So you see here Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud, and it says create, manage, and monitor virtual servers in the cloud. So in the previous presentation, I showed to you how a physical server looks in a data center, but in the AWS cloud environment, you can create a server which is in its virtual form. It's called as a virtual server or a virtual machine, or an elastic compute cloud, which is EC2. Now we are going to get into it in detail, and I will also explain to you exactly what this is, right? What is Amazon web services console? What are the different services? How do you use that? Everything I'm going to show to you in detail. But right now, I'm going to very quickly show to you how do you actually create a server. Okay, I'm going to show to you how do you actually create a server, and I'll create that server very quickly, but later on I will explain to you every single step in detail in our video specially focused on EC2. So we will have a very long session specially on EC2, that is Elastic Compute Cloud, that is a virtual machine on AWS. In that we will see every single step in detail. Right now I'm going to show you, run through exactly how to create an instance and why exactly is it so important in the cloud environment. So I click on this launch instance. You see this orange button here. I click on this launch instance. Then very quickly, it gives me a very vast list of all the details that I need to fill in to create that server. Okay, now I don't want you to be overwhelmed by this. I'm going to go through each and every step and what it means in detail later on, right? But at present, I'm just going to go through it very quickly and show to you, when you know exactly what you're doing and how to create a server, how quickly you can create a server. I'm going to show that to you. Okay, so let's say that in this name, I'm just going to give a name to this server. So I'm going to say demo server. Then I come down, and if you see here, it is giving me all the different operating systems that I can use. So I'm going to select Windows here. What are the other options, how you can use them? You will see that later on. So when I select Windows, it gives me something, the different types of Windows operating systems that I can use. And you see here, there is something called as a free tier eligible. So what does that free tier mean, and how much can you use that free tier? We will see that as well. So I just select one particular operating system. Then I go down, there are some other configurations which are created by default. We'll understand all that later. So here I click on create new key pair, and I just give it a name called as demo key. What is a key? A key is just a password file which you will use to access the virtual machine. What is that key? What is the content of that key? How is it allowing you to access your server? Everything we are going to see in the EC2 session. Okay. Then there are some other network sessions, network settings as well here, which we will see in detail later. So I'm just going to select a few things here. Then what is the storage that you want to select here? So in your server, there will be a hard disk which will be assigned to it, right? So the by default, the size of that hard disk is 30 GB. So the server that we are going to create now, it will have a 30 GB hard disk drive. You can create other disks as well. You can modify this as well. There are different types of disk as well. Everything we will learn in the EC2 session again. Okay, so once I have done all this, all I have to do is just click on this launch instance. Okay, and you will see very quickly my server is now being created. My virtual server, also called as a virtual machine or an EC2, is being created, and it has been successfully launched. So let's see where it is launched and how it is coming up. So I go to this instances page. So you see here it says this instance is now running. It says that this server that I just created is running. But if you see here in the status check, it is checking a few things. It is saying initializing, right? Now, what is it initializing? It is doing certain checks. It is checking whether the operating system that it is loading, it is booting, is working fine or not. It is checking all the different hardware aspects of the virtual machine, whether they have been configured properly or not. And once all these checks are complete over here, it will give me a status called as 2 out of 2 checks passed. Once it gives me that confirmation that both the checks have been passed, then we can access the server. At present, the server cannot be accessed. So if you see, when I select this server, it gives me a button here called as connect. When I click on this connect, I'll be able to connect to the server. But at present, it's not up. So we'll just wait for it. So you see, what we do is in cloud, there are a lot of different parameters that you have to configure. Once you configure that, you can create a server within maximum within 3 to 4 minutes, right? But you need to have a very good understanding about what are those parameters which we are setting. So for that, we will have a very detailed video called as EC2. In that, we will understand that. So let's wait for a few minutes, and then once this server is up, we will connect to it. So if you see, guys, just now I clicked on this refresh, and it says 2 out of 2 checks passed. And if I click here under the status and alarms, you'll see that the system status check has passed, and the instance status check has also passed. These are the two major checks that we are waiting for passing so that we can connect to the server. So once this is done, our server is now up and ready to be accessed. So I just select the specific server that I want to connect to. When you have multiple servers running, you'll see all those servers all running here, and you'll be able to connect to whichever ones you. So server virtual machine is also called as an instance, and that's what it mentions here. Okay, so now I click on connect here, and over here I click on RDP. So RDP means remote desktop protocol. It's one of the features in Windows which helps you to connect to your servers from a remote place. Okay, so I click on this download remote desktop file, and I click on that file again, and I click on connect. Okay, now again, I'm repeating, guys, everything that we are going to do in terms of how to create the server, how to connect to the server, step by step in detail, I'll explain in the EC2 server video. Okay, so here I have a password file which I'm going to upload. The password file that we just downloaded, I'm going to upload that file, and I'm going to decrypt that file. I copy it, and I put that password here. So how is this working? What is the decryption of the password and everything? You'll understand later on. So I click on this, and if you see, now it is allowing me to connect to the server that we just created. So this server system that we are logging into, this is a virtual server which is running on the AWS data center, right? So this server is running in the AWS data center. It's now loading. Very quickly it will come up. Once the server is up, you'll be able to see the Windows server system here, and we will be able to configure it to do any types of tasks that we require. Based on whatever feature it has, we will be able to configure it, and then we will be able to access it. So now I am sitting in my home, and I'm accessing a server that I created within 4 to 5 minutes in a in an AWS data center, and I'm able to access it within 4 to 5 minutes, right? And now we are going to configure it to do something, right? So what did I when I was explaining to you about what a server is, what did we do? I told you that you can host any application or any website on that server, right? So in this server, we are going to host a particular website, a sample website. So very quickly we will host that and we'll see how to access it. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to just expand this, and on this server I'm going to open up a feature called as Windows Server Manager. Okay, so you see here it says Server Manager. I'm going to open that up. When you open this Server Manager, there are many different types of features that you can install and you can access. So many different types of configurations that you can do, which tunes your server to provide certain feature. Okay, so if you see, it is just loading the entire screen right now. Once it is done, we will add a feature called as IIS. So this IIS feature helps us to host a website on your server. Okay, I'm just going in a very um, overview kind of a manner, which we'll see in detail later. If I click on it right now, it will come up and I say next. So you see it gives me a lot of options which we'll go through in detail later on. So I'm just saying next. So again, there is, if you see in this list, it's saying, do you want to install one or more roles from all these different roles? So all these different roles you can assign to your server and have it do these tasks for you. At present, we are going to select this third role from the bottom called as Web Server IIS. Okay, so I select that one. I say add features and I say next. From these features, I don't want to add anything else. So I just say next and I finish the task. Okay, and I say install. So everything else we'll see later. At present, we are not focusing on that. So I say install, and that feature that I just selected called as IIS web server is being installed right now. So this particular, for us to utilize this particular web server feature, I go into the C drive of my server and then I go to this folder called as inetpub. Okay, and here you see a folder called as www root. So I go into this. Now here you have a certain files. So whatever you want to display out of your web server, if you create a HTML root file over here, that is what will be displayed. Okay, so we won't get into too much detail at present. So I just go into new and I create a text file here and I name it as index.html, right? And I can write whatever I want here. That is what will be displayed. So I'm going to say something like this is cloud computing EC2 server demo. Okay, so this is what I'm going to write and I'm going to save this file. Okay, so on what have we done so far? We went to the AWS console. Over there we selected the feature called as EC2 server, and then we filled a lot of different parameters in the EC2 virtual machine creation page, and then we accessed the virtual machine that we have created. That is the server we have here. So it's a window within my system itself, and in this window we installed a feature called as IIS in the server manager role. Everything step by step in detail we will see in the EC2 video later on. But once we have created this, what are we going to do now? Here we created a file in the inetpub www root folder, and we have kept this as a text which we can now access. Okay, so if I go into this instances again, so now I'm back on my desktop screen. I go to the list of instances that I have running on my AWS console. If you see, there will be a public IP address that this server has. Okay, so what is a public IP address? It's an IP address which can be connected to over the internet. So if I access this public IP address, if I just copy that, so if you see, as soon as I put that IP address in, which is a public IP address which can be accessed over the internet, it pulls up what we put in the text. Just to show to you that this is a very real-time experience. Whatever you put in that HTML file as a static website, that is what is pulled and displayed here. So I can just go ahead and change that immediately. Um, All right, so just go ahead and save this in real time. As soon as I change it, you'll see if I refresh this here, it will come up like this, right? So this is how you can create a server on AWS and immediately update anything on it, any application or anything on it, and it can be made accessible all over the world within a few minutes, right? So this allows you to host any application, any um, website or something like that, and many other features and uses that the entire cloud ecosystem gives to you. So we are discussing only about EC2 at present, but there are so many other services which you can just utilize very, very quickly at minimal rates. So the server that we created, even if you run it for an hour or 2 hours, the cost will be very, very minimal. Now let's compare this with what we had earlier and draw this particular video to a conclusion. So if you see, guys, earlier when I showed to you this example where we were discussing about a person who would like to begin his business about 10 to 12 years ago, he would have to invest in a lot of things like servers and switches on his own, which included a lot of capital expenditure of close to $100,000, depending on what kind of things he was buying. And on top of that, it would require at least 1 to 2 months or 3 months of waiting period, right? Now compare that with what we just did on the cloud. We went into the AWS console, we created a virtual machine within 5 minutes, and we configured it according to our requirement, and we were able to host a website on that server which is accessible anywhere on earth, right? We just put a particular IP address, the public IP address that we received from the AWS console, right? We received that public IP address from the AWS console on the server that we just created. We put that on the browser, and through and over the internet, we are able to access it. Now, any number of users can access it on the internet within a few minutes. So what does it do? The earlier we used to spend thousands of dollars to create our own equipment, but now you can just go in and create that exact experience and host your business on AWS. So just imagine, guys, in this case, if that person's business did not work, maybe after a few months he wanted to give up and just had to stop everything, then he would be at a major loss. Even if he had to turn up, sell everything, he will have to take up a big loss, right, in terms of his revenue, in terms of his cost of the equipment. And there was a lot of effort involved as well. But in this case, if you're hosting something on the cloud, you can just shut down everything within a few minutes, and then you'll not incur much major losses as well. So this is the major advantage in terms of time and in terms of cost. Anybody can start a business now. Anybody can host anything on the cloud. There are so many different services. Every requirement that you may have, every service is available. This is the reason cloud is now booming, guys, because all the different types of organizations want to host their systems on the cloud. They want to move to the cloud. In terms of cost, there is a lot of advantages. In terms of time of deployment, there is a lot of advantages. In this case, if you see, if this person had deployed all these equipment, let's say that his business started doing very well. Okay, so we saw in terms of loss, but let's say that in terms of this person's equipment, in terms of this person's business started doing really well. It started doing 10 times more than what he expected. Then he would need 50 more servers. He would require 10 20 more routers, 20 more switches, right? So in that case, maybe let's say he is even able to generate some investments, but again he'll have to wait for the equipment to arrive. There will be a lot of time for that equipment to come in, configure everything, and then expand so that it can it can fulfill the business's requirement. There will be a lot of time and capital expenditure involved again, right? But wherein on cloud, let's say that you're hosting a few servers and your business started doing really well, you need 10 more servers. You just go in, within a few minutes you can spin up 10 more servers and you can expand your business. And there are a lot more other features like auto scaling group, load balancers, a lot of other things that we are going to learn, which helps you to manage your entire infrastructure on cloud a lot more efficiently, right? So time saving, cost saving, effort saving, Earlier you may require 10 people to manage your entire infrastructure. That same task can be done here by one or two or even three people very easily. So a lot of cost savings involved, and that's exactly what I wanted to tell you in this particular session. When you compare cloud with the earlier uh, equipment that we had, the infrastructure that we had, there are a lot of benefits, and that is the reason all the different organizations are now moving to the cloud. And you'll see that in the coming years, in the 4, 5, 10 years, that will continue to happen. That is the major reason, guys. There's a huge demand all over the globe for many people who have the skill set to work on cloud, who know how to work on cloud, who know how to work on different types of cloud, especially AWS. AWS is still the pioneer and one of the major cloud service providers globally. So, guys, this was an introduction to cloud computing, and just wanted to inspire you to learn cloud, because this is the future. Anybody who learns cloud in the coming days, guys, you're going to have an amazing career. In this entire series, we'll have many more videos. I will go into each and every topic, each and every service. How do you create servers? How do you use them for different types of um, features? How do you create network? How do you create virtual private cloud? How do you create load balancers? How would you create different subnets? How would you create NAT gateways or DNS? Lots and lots of things that we are going to see in the upcoming series. So continue to watch these videos and learn AWS cloud so that you can have a wonderful career and a future. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll meet you in the next video. Thank you.